I thought it was AC.
Yeah, AC is number one. HVAC, according to Georgia Power, about 50% of the power they produce goes into HVAC, and this is residential and commercial. The number two consumer of energy in a household is water, unless you use solar, because this will basically reduce your need for energy about 85%. So then your number two consumer either becomes your big screen TV or your appliances, and because typically lighting and appliances can go back and forth, depends on how you occupy the house and what people use. But the number two consumer for energy and commercial is lighting, because they just have so much of it and it's not that efficient. So here's something else that's really fun, is solar thermal for pool heating. I had one client, we did an energy audit for them, and we spent all this money, we upgraded their HVAC, we added insulation, changed out the windows, did a complete basement remodel, and the utility bills were still high, and I'm like, man, what did I do wrong? Did I just leave a window off on the house or something? And like, oh, by the way, we've got a gas pool heater outside, and my husband likes to swim in 92-degree water. I'm like, well, you know, that's not very energy efficient. So we did the calculation. He was spending close to, I think, $1,000 a month on that component. That was $1,500 a month for the gas bill, but just for the pool heating itself was around $1,000. So we just installed a pool heater, and this pool heater is going to double their swimming season. But what's nice about this is a collector that goes on the roof of the house, so it heats up. It's an open loop. It's an open loop system. So water comes out of the pool right here. This is the pump, and on their house this would go directly to a heater and go back into the house. Well, on ours, we broke the circuit here. We go up, take the cold water, it goes through these panels on the roof, it comes back down around 105, 110 degrees. And so if it comes down 110 degrees, the other heater doesn't kick on. So essentially we're supplementing the other heater, and the rough calculations that we did is I can save about $600 a month on heating costs for their pool because of the solar water heater. What's nice about solar for this water heater is that it's eligible in the state of Georgia for the 35% tax rebate as well. This is a picture of my house. Those beautiful overhangs, and you can see this is the room that my family kept on complaining about. This is southwest, optimal spot for solar. Bad place for not having overhangs, so I feel bad for my son. We had to increase the airflow into that room. I put good windows on it. I took all the trim off, did the best air sealing I can, but however, because of the solar heat gain from the sun heating up the building, the only other solution I have right now is to extend the overhangs. So a bad design, and I got this from another lecturer, Peter Pfeiffer. He said a bad design, not taking into account the sun, can account for a 30 to 40% increase in utility bills. And in my particular case, this is a bad design, because we have to run the HVAC more to help this room out. The only other option that I have is basically putting solar screens in and or taking off the sheetrock, putting spray foam insulation and putting sheetrock back on. The challenge that I have in this house is that there's fiberglass in it, and that's the only way to do it, but I'm not going to tear my house apart for that. So I am going to extend the overhang over here, and that's going to also allow me to put solar on the house, because that's the only gable that is that's west facing, so I can have some southern exposure. So just let you know, a green builder does live in a house that still has problems, but we are trying to resolve them. And it does pay to go green with solar, and there's state rebates for Georgia. There's 35%, and there's a cap on the incentives in Georgia. For the federal rebates, you have a 30% incentive, and there's no cap as of this last stimulus package. There's additional rebates from local EMCs. Jackson EMC starts around $450 for solar thermal. I think they have $4,500 for solar power, and they've got additional incentives for geothermal. Coweta Fayette, I think they've got $1,000, $2,000. So there's lots of money out there, and we've got a website that we put together just because I was having a hard time keeping track of it myself. And I put it all on my website so my staff can keep track of it. It's called whyitpaystogogreen.com, and it's a list of all the incentives that we're aware of here in Georgia. And we're typically on the cutting edge of knowing what the incentives are, because the lobbyists and the state representatives will email us, we'll put it up here, so the builders, remodelers, and homeowners can know real time what's going on. So here's a sample solar thermal rebate. The average retail cost that we're seeing here in Georgia, and this is from several manufacturers, is around $8,000, and the total credits comes up to $4,900. So the net cost after the incentives is $3,100. With these incentives, I have a really hard time selling tankless water heaters. We used to sell tankless on every house. Now we sell solar on every house because this is, depending on the configuration, on some houses this is more than a tankless water heater, and in some houses this is less than a tankless water heater, because if your tankless water heater is installed in a different location, you have to install a Metlin pump. Well, guess what? Your cost just went to above this. The argument that we see for this, the net cost, is the fact that this is around the same cost as a tankless water heater. However, it's about 5 to 10 times as efficient. A tankless water heater is only 10, 20, around 15% more efficient than a standard tank water heater. And we're comparing apples to apples. We're comparing solar to the same tank as we're comparing tankless to. However, with this is 85% more efficient than a regular tank. So doing that math, it's 5 to 10 more times efficient than a tankless water heater. And again, there are additional rebates that are available from your EMCs. Yes.
Previous slide, new net cost $2,100.
That's taking this $1,000 from one of the EMCs. I was just showing in some areas it can be as low as that, and we're currently working with Georgia Power to help them get some incentives and showing the paybacks. It's taking a little bit longer than expected, but I think by the end of this year or next year, and that's fast for Georgia Power. They are going to have some incentives for solar and solar water heating.